Today, I'm talking about the C45 series from Franklin. Sorry, I don't have any fancy video editing skills. The hybrid C45 was released in March 2025. This was the first big release from Franklin in quite some time. Generation 3 construction, 14mm core, double thermoforming process, and a unique 45-degree angle arrangement of the 3 carbon fiber layers. It needed some customization, namely weight, but it made the paddle shine. 7 grams of tungsten on either side, hockey tape all around the edges, and a 9-gram flick weight brought it to 8.4 ounces, swing weight 115, twist weight 7.03. It quickly jumped into my main paddle circulation, and I have an Instagram review posted in late March if you want to check that out. Link is in the description. The C45 became a popular paddle, but some durability issues were brought up as core crushing events were reported. However, over the months that have followed, that talk has lessened, and from paying attention to the social media outlets, this does not seem to be more prevalent than any other Generation 3 paddle. So now, Franklin has decided to expand the C45 lineup. They have added an elongated shape named Dynasty and a standard/wide body shape named Tempo. I don't know if they are going to go back and rename the hybrid paddle, currently just called the C45. They also added a 16mm core to the Dynasty and Tempo shapes. I don't have any word yet if they plan to add a 16mm hybrid paddle. Franklin sent me these paddles, so let's take a look. Stock, these paddles come in light. I'll put up my measurements and of course pause the video if you want to study them. The takeaways are that there are no surprises in the specs given the very light stock weights. The Tempo 14mm has an ultra-light swing weight of 99, but that is also unsurprising given the stock swing weight of the hybrid shape of 104. All of the newer paddles I was sent had static weights of the 7.7 ounce range, and my original C45 was 7.4 ounces. Another thing you should note is that the handles on the Tempo are 5.25 inches, and on the Dynasty and original hybrid, they are 5.75 inches. Playing with the original C45 stock, I remember thinking that the paddle felt light and almost flimsy. Baseline drive sounded great, but felt flat. The surface felt great, and is the plushest feeling 14mm paddle I have used. A standout for me was the handle feel and stock grip. This is one of the few paddles I have left the grip stock and naked. I really like the feel and shape. Stock, it felt offensive at the kitchen, but limited farther back in the court. Playing the new paddles, I had a similar experience, but maybe 20 to 30% better from the baseline. Let's start with the 14mm versions first. The paddles don't feel as flimsy stock, felt great at the kitchen, and decent, but not great at the baseline. Handles, they're the same, and I love them. The sound is the same, and I'm guessing there's been very little change to the construction. Same great plush feel. These paddles played fine stock, though did not seem to have a power paddle level of drives. The differences between the elongated and the standard shapes were what you expect, with whippier drives with the Dynasty and lightning quick hands with a Tempo. Now to the stock 16mm versions. It is amusing to me to think that 2mm would make a difference, but it does. I'm pretty sure most of you could tell blindfolded which paddle is the 14 and 16mm. The 16mm dials up that plusness on feel, less pop on quick shots, and a nice full feeling on bigger drives. Overall, the differences aren't huge by any means, but they are noticeable. Over the course of a couple weeks, I would play these paddles back and forth, alternating all 5 of them to compare and contrast. I found myself liking the Dynasty 14mm and Tempo 16mm the best of the new ones. I mainly play doubles and don't rely upon big serves and passing shots. I found the Dynasty 14mm gave me the great offense at the kitchen, quick hands, and enough power at the baseline to hit quality drives. The touch in the C45 surface is still great, and I didn't need the plushness of the Dynasty 16mm to hit softer shots. However, the Tempo 14 for me did have a lack of power that the Tempo 16 could give me for those same quality drives. And the Tempo 16 was quick enough at the kitchen to give me that pop and quick shots that I need. I know that sounds weird, but after several days of multiple games, I kept gravitating to the Dynasty 14 and Tempo 16. Stock. So then I added weight. First, on the Dynasties, I went with 3 grams at 10 and 2, 6 grams at 4 and 8, hockey tape over the top half. That brings the static weights of each up to 8.45 ounces. On the Tempos, I added 3 grams at each corner with hockey tape all around, bringing those static weights to 8.3 grams. Both paddles felt sluggish. They weren't really heavy, and swing weights weren't huge, but for me they lost that quick offensiveness that I loved from the C45s. They all did hit much harder on serves, and I had to dial back a bit to keep them in on full swings. But I don't think that's where the C45 series shines, at least for me. So I modified the Dynasties by removing that 10 and 2 weight, trimming the 6 grams on the sides to 4.5 grams. On the tempos, I moved those weights at 10 and 2 to 3 and 9, keeping the 4 and 8 weights. This was the sweet spot for me. These modifications gave me the specs that you can see on the screen now. I went back to loving these paddles and enjoying playing with them. My power was dialed up for baseline shots, putting me back into the power category, more so for the Dynasty. For this weight placement, I think the tempos fall into an all-court leaning power category. But the maneuverability was still there and they just felt comfortable in the hand. I found the differences in the 14 and 16 millimeter to be less evident when they were weighted up, but still slightly preferring the 14 over the 16 millimeter Dynasty and the 16 millimeter over the 14 millimeter Tempo. Though I will say the differences between the 14 and 16 millimeter Dynasties are closer to me and I could play either one without any difficulty. However, I'm not sure any of these four overtake the hybrid C45 for me. Throwing this one back into the mix just made me appreciate how well it plays. Maybe I'm just more used to it or this specific weight modification, but it really seems to be the best blend of maneuverability and firepower from the baseline to the kitchen. If you've made it this far, you're probably looking for the price. The current C45 lists for $229.99 and the new ones should list at the same price. But don't pay that. You can take 10% off, taking the price down to $206.99 using code SSPVC. You'll save money and they'll give me a commission that I use for my local pickleball community. This paddle is for the player who wants some offense at all areas of the court: baseline, kitchen, and putaways. This is a premium paddle that you can get around the $200 price mark, which makes it a decent value. I think the overall power falls short of the YOLO Pro 4s and new Ripples, and is more in line with a weighted up 11624 Power Series or their new Alpha Pro Power. What really sets it apart for me is that feel of the paddle face, which is unique for Generation 3 construction. It's not stiff, but it's still poppy. Now, if you couldn't tell, this is definitely one of my favorite paddles. I keep about 5 mains in my court caddy, and the hybrid C45 is definitely one of those. I hope you like this. If you did, would you please give me a subscribe, a like, and share with your pickleball friends? And let me know your thoughts in the comments. Take care. Peace.